お願いします. I hope everyone's good. So tonight, I'm going to read, instead of Shokshu, a short something by a man named Arnold Bennett called Time. It's from the Maui Aikido training manual. Time is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It is unstealable. And no one receives either more or less than you receive. Moreover, you cannot draw on its future. It's impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. That is kept for you. You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it, you have to spin health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friends, depends on that. If one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours a day shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, I'm sorry, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time than we have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. I think that's just so beautiful and so exactly appropriate for tonight. Our subject tonight is the 5 principles of office work. And not just office work, but all work depends upon us being masters of time, not slaves to time. And the difference between those two means you are the one that is looked to in the office, on the job, to get things done. You are the one that is trusted. I think I said the other night, you want to be the one that everybody turns to when some difficult person has to be dealt with. This is it. This is the same thing. You are the one that you want to have everyone trust. It's all about trust. How you use your time is all about trust. And now there are, of course, some techniques that we can use to boost our use of time, train ourselves to use time better, be more organized and more intelligent about the way we go about it. And those are these 5 principles that Coach Toy Sensei has provided for us. So even though you might think, well, okay, now we're getting down to the end. This is just office work. It's not like something really outrageous like the 5 principles of keeping one point, you know. But it is equally important to me because we all work. And even if you don't have a proper job, a type of job where you work in an office or you work in a company, maybe you don't work that way, but everybody has responsibilities every day. Even if you're working in, well, everybody seems to be working out of their home now, but so even in that circumstance, maybe more than ever in that circumstance, if, for instance, you're a mother or a father and you have to take care of your kids and their schooling and you have to work from home, yeah, and you have to keep the house clean and plan the meals and cook the meals, you know, yeah. So it's not less intense, maybe even more intense than working in an office. But even so, if you are working at home and you're in your family, then I would like you to be the one that everybody in the family trusts to get things done. I want you to be the one that everybody in your family turns to when something is difficult and needs being resolved. So that's what this is all about tonight, okay? So let's just do a little key breathing. And we can be calm. Okay, stretch your body. Okay, let's begin by asking Sayaka Reasoner to read the 5 principles for office work in Japanese.
執務の5原則。1、自分から仕事を見つける。2、逐一メモを取る。3、今やれることはやる。4、寝る前に明日の仕事の手順を考える。5、後始末をする。
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to do this a little differently this time. You can tell me later if you don't like it or like it better. I'm going to read the 5 old principles and then I'll read the 5 new principles. A few people have said it was confusing. Okay, the 5 old principles for office work. That old just means the first translation from years and years ago. Number 1, take initiative to find work without waiting to be told. Number 2, make a habit of taking notes to organize and improve your work. Number 3, do not postpone something that you can do now. Number 4, before going to sleep, plan the next day's work. Number 5, make a habit of reviewing your notes first thing in the morning. Okay, the 5 principles of office work, new translation. Number 1, don't wait to be told what to do. Number 2, take notes for everything. Number 3, don't postpone what you can do now. Number 4, plan for tomorrow before you go to bed tonight. Number 5, clean up after working. Okay, so number 1, don't wait to be told what to do. Of course, all of these sort of speak for themselves, but these are the kind of principles that, you know, everybody, as I was saying before, everybody has some kind of work they're doing. So there's no way you can not identify with every one of these, right? So take a notice in your mind's eye when you hear these, what kind of response you have. Because all of this whole business of being the trusted one and always accomplishing the task that you're given and never letting the thought occur to you, oh, I don't have time to do that. That's the one phrase that in business, in office work, and in Aikido, you never want to let pass your lips. Oh, I don't have time to do that. So, of course, that means you're a slave to time instead of the master of time. So you might as well just say, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm a slave. So I'm hopeless. I can't do anything about it. So that's the business from Arnold is about time, is trying to help us understand that we all get the same amount of time. And we all think that we are more busy than everybody else. But in fact, no one is more busy than anyone else. There's always someone more busy than you. Okay? And you'd be surprised to find out that people that have learned to be a master of time and not a slave to time accomplish way more than you do with a lot more on their plate and are very relaxed and happy all the time. That's the result of being a master of time instead of a slave. So don't wait to be told what to do. The phrase for Otomo practice is to be 2 steps ahead of your teacher. That's basically what this is saying, is, you know, you don't want to be told by the teacher, could you please get this done? You want to be aware and noticing around the office, so you see what work is coming up, what needs to be done, so you can take the weight off other people that don't know how to deal with time like you do. Because you're a master of time, right? Because you train Aikido. All right. So don't wait to be told what to do. Take notes for everything. But this is this is something I'm very strict about. And you know, if you work in my company, you have to write everything down. That's the way I do it anyway. And I've found that it's very useful. Now I'm very old-fashioned, and I use one of these things. You see this? This is what I know you guys probably nobody does that anymore. You all just put it in your iPhone, right? Or on your iPad. But I find that I tend to erase things that are on my iPad, or I can never find them. This way, every day. I have these books back to 1972. That's how long I've been making notes, 5 days a week. Every day, I make notes for every work day. So that means I have all the old phone numbers. I have all the old names. I know what I did when I did it. And also writing down or taking notes for everything helps you with the rest of these principles, which is planning your week or your 2 weeks or your month or your year or your 2 years or your 5 years. You want to know ahead of time what's coming up. So always writing everything down. You don't have to get up in the morning and go, oh, I forgot, I've got to go do this thing with somebody, have some meeting today. Or worse yet, you forget altogether and you don't go. So always know ahead of time what needs to be done so you don't need to be told, and take notes for everything. Number 3, don't postpone what you can do now. Well, we're all procrastinators. We all like to put off things till later, right? But that's very inefficient use of time. It's always best to take care of it right now when it's fresh. What Suzuki Sensei would say, when it's fresh in your mind, do it freshly. Don't wait to do it later, and then you have to go run around and waste a half an hour putting the project together that you have to do because you can't remember all the parts to it. So you do it. You do it. You don't put it off until tomorrow or even later in the day. Of course, you have to use common sense. If you've got 10 things to do and you only have a day in which you can do 8, then you break up the 8 and you plan the 2 for tomorrow. I mean, it's not that you, once again, you don't want to be a slave to anything. It's not just you don't want to be a slave to time. You don't want to be a slave to the work. You are not a slave. You are a master. Even if you're the lowest person in the company, you can still master what it is you're given to do. You can be a master of the time that you spend, whatever it is. Plan, number 4, plan for tomorrow before you go to bed tonight. You have to be careful about this one. You know, we have a rule in our family, and that we're not allowed to talk about business at the table because we're all doing business together. And we can so well, obviously you can interrupt the peace of the dinner table that way, but also you don't want to be going to sleep thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. It really doesn't mean that. It means before, ahead of time, at the end of the day, in other words, not just before you go to bed. At the end of the day, before you leave the office, before you leave your workplace, even if it's just a desk in your home, then be sure that you have everything worked out for tomorrow. Now, tomorrow won't be like that. We all know that. But if you plan it, you can be the master of it. And if you don't, you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off tomorrow. And the last one is clean up after working. This is a very individual kind of thing. Some people really thrive on having piles of messes on their desks. I don't know if you're one of those people or not, but you know, I happen to be in love with one person like that. So it's okay. It's okay. If that's the way you like to do it, more power to you. But you know, I've asked Lynn about it. And she says, yes, but I know where everything is. So if that's the case, it's not a problem. But I can't do that. I'm not able to do that, to remember these piles where everything is. So I like to be more organized. And I think that when we say clean up after working, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think Tori Sensei is necessarily saying that we all have to be the same. We have to wipe out our desk clean every day. So when you come in the morning, you have only wood looking at you, or whatever your desk is made of. No, he's not saying that. But he is saying, you know, to put everything where you know it's going to be in its priority phases, or in the phases that you'll be working on them, so that it makes it just that much easier. You only have to do it once. Don't do anything twice that you can do once, and finish everything completely when you're working on it. Don't leave one thing that you still have to do back there to go back and pick up. That would drive you crazy. The Tori Sensei taught us Randori, and every time he taught Randori, he told the same story. You know, people think they can multitask. Well, you can multitask, but you only have so much attention. And if you split it 10 ways, then everything that you give attention to will get 1/10 of your attention. That's the way it works. In every moment, you only have your attention. You don't have any extra attention. You have only your attention, right? So in that moment, in Randori, you deal with the person that is attacking you, so that you give 100% to that problem and solve it. So you don't leave it until it's solved. And you're not thinking about what the next person is coming at you, or you'll only give this person an opening to attack you, and you're not thinking about what you did right or what you did wrong with the last person, or again, you'll be inefficient and unsuccessful at what you do in the moment. What's right in front of you. Suzuki Sensei, everybody knows, taught us all that if you're to pick up the sensei at 6 o'clock and you arrive at 5:45, you're late. Okay. So like when I would take a trip with him, for instance, even if it was inter-island, never mind long trips, he would say, come and pick me up at 4 o'clock, whatever the time was. Pick me up at this time. So I know Sensei. So I know that at 3:45, I'm going to be considered late. So I would come at 3:30. I'd arrive at 3:30. He's sitting on the bench outside his house with his suitcase and his suit on, and going, oh, you're here. He always would say, oh, you're here, like you're late. Oh, I've been waiting. I'm so happy to see you. You're here. Okay, so well, what did that teach me? I mean, if you go through years and years and years, and I'm talking 25 plus years of this, it's going to affect you in a major way. So when I have a meeting, when I have to leave the office, of course I'm going to leave early and make sure that I have an extra 15 or 20 minutes in case there's a lot of traffic, or in case there's an accident, or in case something happens that I don't know about. And there's always something, isn't there? And the other thing is, when you're leaving the office, be sure you tell the people in the office, in your office, where you're going and who you're meeting and what time you're meeting them. Because they're also taking notes on everything that happens, so that if something happens and they have to find you, they can do it right away. So that if something happens and there's an emergency and you have a heart attack and they have to call an ambulance, they know where you are exactly. Okay, so that's an extreme case, but these things do happen. So this whole business of being a master of time, you know, well, maybe no one's a master, but everyone can become more and more efficient by following these principles that Toysons is giving us. And I want to say one more time that when I first saw this years ago, I thought, what's so important about that? Why is he writing principles about, that's not spiritual training. That's not Aikido. Why do I need to learn that? Well, I only had to work in an office for a few years to discover how important it was for my peace of mind, which is my spiritual state of mind. My peace, my calmness, my insight, my noticing, all depends on what kind of a relationship I have with time. So for all of us, this is the case. Very, very important. Okay, so it's 6:27. I think that's enough. I've probably said enough. So John will plunge you into your breakout rooms now. So please enjoy, and I'll see you in 20 minutes. Okay, thank you. I'm very interested to hear your comments, what you've been talking about for 20 minutes. I hope you're enjoying getting to know each other. Think of all the new friends you're making, international friends. And now later, next year and the year after, when we all get together for seminars, you'll know everyone. You'll have all these new people you know. So I think it's a wonderful thing. Okay, John, do you want to ask them? I don't know what the sequence is here.
Okay, I will ask Thomas Ziegler, since his hand is up.
Okay, great. Hi, Thomas.
Hello, Sensei and everybody. So while we talked about the experience of everybody of the group have in this area of our daily life, a question comes up: how to react when things immediately pop up, and you have to react with this new situation where your resources are very, very tight, and you're faced with, okay, now I have a problem because I have not my normal day schedule. I have, let's say, 3 new things, yes. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that we all have this experience occasionally, at least. Yeah. That so,
is there a question?
Yeah, that is how to. That is the question. How to react. Of course, I think everybody of us have a strategy for that.
Yeah, I'm sure anybody who has been working in business, which usually orients around some kind of office or grouping of people, has had this experience, maybe quite often, particularly if you're the one that people trust. It happens more often to the person that we trust. It's like we always say, the cliche is, if you want to get something done, give it to the busiest person in the room, because they're the ones that will be able to get it done for you. You should be flattered when an emergency is handed to you, because it means they trust you. Somehow the universe trusts you to do this. Sometimes it can be quite a shock if you're working in some kind of a field, like in my business, there are people in the machine, on machines out there in the various jobs, driving backhoes and loaders and excavators, and they're dangerous. And they're using machines that can cut them and hurt them. So sometimes you get a phone call that says so-and-so just hurt himself badly and he's on his way to the hospital. Well, you can't just say, okay, thanks for handling that for me. You have to interrupt your day and go do it. And sometimes it's just a matter of a client that's not happy and needs to be talked to for a few moments, or maybe it's some kind of deadline that's immediately come up and is handed to you. Of course, because you have training in Aikido, you know that to allow yourself to look at yourself, I think this was the subject last week or last class, you don't want to look at yourself and see if you can do this. You want to look at the problem right away and see that you can do it. You see, it's this whole business of awareness, of not mistaking yourself as the object. You're not the tool. You're not the object. You are a tool, but only you're a tool for you. You are not the tool. The tool may be your intellect, your memory, your ability to work on the computer, your vast knowledge of the things that I don't have knowledge of that happen in the computer world. These things maybe they're your tools, but they're not you. You are the one. So as long as we remember that, we stay calm and we handle it. And I had a teacher one time that said, don't ever say you can't handle something. You will handle it, you just might not handle it well. If you look at it incorrectly, you won't handle it well. But if you see in the way that we're practicing, where there is a center, there is a being that is in charge and is connected with the whole universe, so that every decision that one makes is, I don't want to say successful, but useful and effective. And you can trust that. So when we don't trust ourselves, that means our ego gets in the way. Our selfish mind gets in the way. Our short-sightedness gets in the way. Like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. So when that kind of thing happens, of course, we're losing one point. We're losing we're forgetting who we are, and we're acting like a tool. Okay? So, you could go on and on and on about this kind of thing. But we do, in fact, that's what every class is about, is that very question. Keep on point. Okay, next person, please. Nadia?
Hello, Sensei.
Hello, Nadia.
I don't have a question. We didn't have any question, just a short summary of what we discussed. We discussed that there are a lot of people and everyone is more or less organized. So it's a question how that rules fit to people not organized, like me, for example. Second part was about how fifth principle about so reviewing notes became cleaning up after work. So it changed very much. Yeah, from old translation to new. And the last thing we discussed was about what you said about people wanting to be the person who is solving problems. That probably not everyone wants to be such a person. That's all.
Of course, yes, of course. Everyone doesn't want to be that. And some people that want to be the one to solve problems shouldn't be wanting that at all because they're not capable of that. So there's that side of it too. Of course, and all these dynamics are in the office all the time. The organized one, the less organized one, right? This is all human nature. No one is, everybody isn't, you know, masters immediately. But so that's why, to me, these principles are so valuable because they give us a place to start. You know, I mean, if you were having trouble, for instance, in the office, if you're a member of a company and you're in an office and you're having a difficult time of it, and you know, you're not happy at the end of the day, if you just took one of these principles, take notes for everything. Just take one of these principles and practice it for 6 months. Everything else would begin to fall into place. Think how organized you have to be to take notes for everything. Otherwise, it just turns into a mess. You have to organize your notes, right? You have to file everything properly in your mind. So then that begins to organize the way you think about approaching a challenge. So, you know, we don't have to look at all 5 of these and go, oh my goodness, that's a lot for me to undertake. Pick one. Don't wait to be told what to do. Now, don't postpone anything. From now on, never postpone anything. The rest of these things doesn't matter. Just tell yourself, I don't care about this. I'll just practice this one thing. And, you know, that's a really valuable way to go because sometimes when we're practicing in Aikido, the teacher, like maybe me, is giving you a lot of information and a lot of things to pay attention to. And it can be overwhelming. So it's quite often very valuable just to pick one thing and not worry about anything else. Just pick one simple thing that you can do and practice that, you know. Like, so in the beginning, when I started training Aikido, I would come to the dojo early and some other students would come and we would work up a real sweat by the time class started. We do all these different techniques and trying all these different things. And it was a crazy half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, where we didn't really accomplish anything. We just burn a lot of calories, which can be okay. All right. And then Suzuki Sensei took me aside and said, look, Chris, just do one thing. Just pick up the bokken and stand in front of the mirror and cut. Just cut one time correctly. Do that for an hour before class and see how you're prepared for class. Oh my, it just changed everything. Just by picking one thing, maybe one movement, one roll that I was having trouble with, or one kind of Shomanichi Kokyunagi I had trouble with for a while because I just wasn't getting something. So I just picked that thing and worked on it over and over and over and over. And just imagine, because then that translates to everything. As usual, I could go on and on, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mirtha, please. I know I might not pronouncing your name correctly. Mirtha.
It's Mirtha Sensei.
Mirtha, thank you, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We were in a group with Alaria and Charlotte, and I forgot to take notes at that moment. So somebody not speaking and not visible, I think it was Roy, I'm not sure. We discussed how difficult it is to keep to your schedule, even if you make one, to stick to it. We also discussed that sometimes your task is not completely clear, that you are supposed to take care of a task somebody gives you, but they don't know exactly what they want. So you have to extend key first to find out what they want. And you don't want to start working only when they are clear about what they want. So you need to start in advance to feel what is sure about your task already. So that can be challenging. And the third thing is that sometimes you find yourself not being naturally quick in your work, not naturally quick in what you do, or sometimes you have problems with your memory, and then you have to keep one point and use whatever is given to you to work with and still do the best job you can, even if it seems hard to believe that you can ever be a master of time. So the question we got out of that is, how do you completely accept who you are concerning your mastery of time, and on the other hand, how do you keep practicing in a happy way to become a master of time?
Oh boy. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for a large question.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, you said it really at the end there. The key is correctly assessing your own abilities, right? So, and not comparing yourself to anybody else. If you have the idea to be like someone else, that's already going to be a big problem, because you're not. You're only you. Each one of us has our own rhythm. Some people work quite rapidly and are not so efficient. Some people work very slowly and are not efficient. But on the other side, sometimes people work rapidly and can be quite efficient. And some people have to work slowly to be efficient. Then that's what you do. That's who they hired, is you. So you do the job it's required. It's like discovering when somebody hands you something to do and they're in a hurry and they don't properly explain to you what it is that they'd like to have you do with this. So you have to be clear with them and, excuse me, please explain, politely, of course, not demanding, but, and because of course, office dynamics, emotional dynamics are really critical. That doesn't mean you have to be politically correct all the time. It just means, although that's probably a good idea these days, but you want to be correctly assessing who you are and living up to that. And if you do that, then people will trust you and they will depend on you and they will give you a raise because you will be so valuable. Okay? Next person, please. Thank you. Groups 2, 4, 5, and 6 have yet to say anything.
Sensei, excuse me. Alexei
Yes.
from Moscow has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Alexei, please speak.
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
First, it's quite strange that we also have invisible and quiet Roy in our group. Maybe this is some, I don't know, computer
There's
mistake.
two of them. There's two of them.
Another point that, yeah, we discussed that we all, I would say, partially slaves, partially masters of time it's depends. Sometimes at work, sometimes in home at family. It's different, but I would say that for me personally, sometimes it's easier to follow, I don't know, orders or tasks or issues when they come from outside. But it's more difficult to be more initiative to do something, not, I don't know, what only I think I see should be done. Therefore, maybe our question is how to motivate ourselves and to follow this idea. If I think that something should be done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think it's, of course, it's your attitude. It's our attitude that governs everything. And when you feel like you're being told what to do, so sometimes that's very difficult emotionally for us. The one thing we don't want is somebody to tell us what to do. But I will say something interesting that I discovered is when you own the company, you are motivated, right? Because it's your dollar and it's your company, and for you to succeed, it has to succeed. And so you don't have any trouble either initiating action or being somebody asking you telling you what needs to be done. You have no problem. So the way the Japanese handle this problem, I think is very good. And that is everybody has a stake in the company. And that's a good way in the West, we're not so used to that. We're more like white supremacists, you know, we're all a bunch of maniacs trying to run the world. But if we back off a little bit and share with everybody, and everybody has a sense of ownership, of like they're and even if it's just dollars and cents, you know, so maybe they make more money, and that's a great motivator, you know. But much more important than that is your sense of pride and ownership in and taking responsibility for the company yourself, for everything that you do in your way. So I think that, yeah, it particularly in the kind of atmosphere that exists in many Western countries in the workplace, it's not always so welcoming to people, particularly people that are like lower down and feel put upon, and constantly, they don't make much money. They don't make as much money as the people that are giving them orders. And they feel like saying, well, just, you have all this time, you do it yourself. So sometimes that's difficult for them. So we have to find a way to motivate them for sure. And it's not just money. Again, it's giving them a sense of place and purpose. So they feel valued. They can value their self. If you don't value yourself, you're not going to be a self-starter. You're not going to be motivated to do anything purposeful. That's what I would say about that. Okay?
Thank you, Sensei. I think that, yeah, to take ownership of
Yes.
it's maybe in a wider sense, it's quite a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's next? I see chats.
Kaiomi
So,
had her hands up.
okay, please.
Sensei,
Yes.
everybody. We are in
Oh,
the
Kaiomi.
group 6
Yes.
with Toby, Susan, and Jack. And we had we have 2 questions about this principle. We talked about number 5, clean up after working. Does this mean the Tohei Sensei meant. Cleanup is like physical cleanup on the work area, or this includes more? For example, I was curious if, let's say if I was helping the customers and I made a mistake, even the time's up like 5 o'clock, I need to follow up and make sure that the customer is, okay. So meaning that I have to follow through and closing the task that I started. So we are wondering if this cleanup after working includes more than just the physical cleanup, but also like our actions also mentally, like we finish and then let go of the work day or task. So
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is that it? Or did you have
Another one is,
you have another question? Okay.
2 is take notes for everything. And how does this relate to Aikido principle? I don't think I can say very well. How does it relate to being in the moment?
Taking notes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me do that one first.
Yes.
What was the other question? I forgot already.
First one was clean up after work.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, taking notes. For instance, when I go to a seminar with Shinichi Sensei or with Tohei Sensei or with Suzuki Sensei, or sometimes we have guest instructors like Shainer Sensei or Chin Sensei, I take notes all the way through. And some people don't like to do that because, well, it gets in the way of training, So I think that's very important because it helps me organize my mind around what the teaching is. Some people maybe can do that just in their mind, but in my case, it helps me a lot to take notes. So I think that that's not quite what your question is, though. I mean, I think I related to taking notes on Aikido. You're saying, the question you're asking is, are you really being in the moment if you're taking notes to depend on later? Yes, you are, because I said the most important thing is to correctly assess your abilities. Nobody has a very good memory at work because there's too much going on. Even every person that works for me thinks they don't need to write things down because they can remember it, but no one can. I've never met anyone that can. So it's very important to absorb, so being in the moment in awareness is one thing, but in business, what is being said has to be remembered. Now, my opinion is what's being said by the teacher in a seminar also has to be remembered because I'm a teacher. So I will be called upon to teach that to someone later on. So I make sure I take notes when Suzuki Sensei is teaching or Tohei Sensei is teaching me, or Shinichi Sensei these days is teaching me. I take notes, not to show anyone else so much, but for myself, so that I go over them and over them and over them afterward and on the plane on the way home and back in my office to make sure that I remember correctly what it was that was said. So the same thing applies in work. Now, as far as cleaning up goes, yeah, of course, you don't want to be so attached to your work that everybody else has gone home and you're still trying to, 2 hours later, you're still working. No, that's not it. But what you suggested is very important, I think. If there's something that's not complete for a client, for instance, and they're waiting on it, you don't want to call them and say, I'll give this to you tomorrow. I don't really, you want to give it to them. So you organize it around that. And if you have to stay 5 or 10 minutes more to get it done, you do. I suppose there's some offices, like attorneys' offices, where it's so important that you're on the hook 24 hours a day. Sometimes you have to sleep in your office. But I would never want a job like that myself. In fact, I like Aikido so much that it probably cost me a lot of money, because on Aikido, when Aikido was at night, I always quit at 3 o'clock at my office. I go home at 3 o'clock so that I can be ready to train and meet with my teacher and so forth. If I worked till 5, I could have made lots more, maybe, income. But it's worth it to me to have peace of mind. That's so much. I mean, aren't we earning money in order to be happy and have peace of mind? So anything we can do that is not related to money that gives us peace of mind, I think is worth a fortune in self-realization. Okay? All right, thank you. All right, so we have 2 more groups, it says here. Step forward. If you were to sign, but you're in a group and you haven't spoken, your group hasn't spoken, just speak up.
Group 2 and 4 have not spoken yet.
Well, if I may report for group 2, that was Vitali, Sally, and Vernon and Sue. We really didn't have a question, but we talked about finding strategies for prioritizing what really has to get done, be it a list or remembering things in our heads. But and sometimes that's difficult to be able to not postpone things. We kind of just talked about not postponing, about seeing what really needs to be done and doing it. And the fact that the 5 principles just really seem to be about being the best you can be. So like taking one of them and really doing it, but taking all of them together, they seem to really just speak to extending ki all the time and being right there in attention.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, Melanie. Thank you very much. I don't really have much of a response there, except that it's so inspiring that this is such a wonderful subject for everyone in their daily life. And it's so relatable to what we're doing in our practice. I think it's just great. So thank you very much. Talking about these things, maybe struggling with them a little bit, is really important for our peace of mind, for our healthy attitude. Okay, there's one more group and that hasn't said anything. Is that right, John? Fincher. Who's in your group?
Yes, group 4, I think. It was Lynn and Prakash and Bill and Olaf and myself.
Oh, okay.
And I'd say that we all kind of touched on certain points on this list that were really important in our work. Everybody is doing a little bit different things in their daily job duties. We also touched on how I think Schubert Sensei touched on the difference on applying these things when you're working for somebody and when you actually have ownership, like you mentioned. There seems to be a different approach to that, even though possibly it shouldn't be different, but it is when you have ownership in your day.
Yeah.
In your day. And I think we ended up with a question. I don't think we actually resolved, and that is these principles are really important in your day, and if you value them and you're working with people that don't so much value them, how do you get them on board? Whether it be a coworker or a boss, what might be a good way of ending your frustration with their inefficiency?
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting way to put it. Okay, so obviously if you're the boss, that's your responsibility to make sure that everybody's on board. If you're not the boss, it is not your responsibility to make sure that everybody is on board. You might want to do that to make your life easier, but it's not your responsibility to do that if you're not the boss. Now, there's bosses and there's bosses, right? There's the owner of the company, there's a manager. In some companies that are big, there's managers, or let's say owner, president, CEO, vice presidents, managers, sub-managers. So everybody has somebody over them, and everybody has somebody under them in this sense. So maybe no matter what position you have, you may be given some responsibility to help other people get on board with effective work practices. But if they're not working for you, then be very careful, I would suggest, about trying to convince everybody in the room to be like you are. The thing, if what you're following are principles like these, and you really see the value of them, if you do these principles yourself without any negative feeling about other people, because any negative feeling will sabotage every one of these. So if you are having negative feelings about other people and think you're doing this, you're wrong, you're not. So if you're following the principles freely and openly, others will be attracted and will ask. And when they ask, then you can suggest. Okay? That's all I have to say about that. Okay? Thank you very much. Once again, my voice is finished off for the evening, so I have to say goodbye. So domo arigatou gozaimashita. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for being here. Let's continue to enjoy this process.